My name's Dr. Lynne and I'm one of the Assistant Directors at NHS Research and Development North West. And really what we're aiming to do in this session, which is a joint session, is give you some information about different approaches to research capability building, and specifically looking at two schemes, one of which is a national scheme, which is the Health Education England internship programmes, and the other of which is a regional scheme which is funded by Health Education North West, and is run through the University of Central Lancashire. So the way that we're going to run the workshop is that I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about the Health Education England internship programmes, and Dion, who was one of the interns on the cohort that's just completed, is going to give you that personal perspective. And we're then going to hand over, and colleagues from UCLan are going to talk about the UCLan scheme and how that operates, and then have time for open discussion afterwards. So that's the way we're running the scheme. So really all I was wanting to do was give you a little bit of background into how the Health Education England internships came about. And in her presentation, Anne talked about the integrated clinical academic programme, and she had a slide that had all of the different levels of that programme. Until recently, that programme started at the level of Masters in Research, and that was the first thing that you could apply for. So if you're interested in doing a Masters in Clinical Research, you could apply to the University of Central Manchester to be a member of that course, and you were fully funded either a year full-time or part-time to undertake that Masters in Research. And then the programme progressed up through to doctoral awards, clinical lectureships and senior clinical lectureships. But last year, Health Education England took an overview. They've been doing a whole evaluation of that programme and took the decision that actually what they would like to do is add something to the pre-masters, to put a pre-masters stage in. And the rationale behind that was quite a lot of people, healthcare professionals, clinicians, have an idea that they would like to do research, but maybe want an opportunity to find out a lot more about what does it really involve, what is it like to be a researcher, to be a member of a research group, what's it like to do research in the NHS, before they make a commitment about whether or not this is a career that I would like to progress along. So what Health Education England did for the first time last year was to introduce a new level, and that's the level of the internships. So the internship programmes run throughout the whole of England, and every region has been awarded 5 internships. So it's an England-wide programme. They all run at slightly different stages and in different ways. But the approach that we took in the North was to say, rather than our 3 local education and training boards running a programme for 5 interns, what we'd actually like to do is develop a more cohesive approach, and our internship programme runs across the northern region. The internship programme itself is based on providing backfill for someone from a clinical background to be released for, and this year it's for 38 days from their clinical practice. So the Trust actually receives the backfill funding for the person to be out of practice. And the funding that they receive more than covers the salary, so it does cover the costs of maybe finding someone to backfill as well. The aim of the internship is that the person will spend 30 days with an academic supervisor, somebody with expertise from a research background. So the other element of the funding is that the host organisation, it's often a university, but it may not necessarily be, receives £1,000 for providing the supervision and supporting the person through the internship. And I think one of the differences between the 2 schemes you'll hear about today is that the Health Education Internship Programme enables you to select the university and the research group that you would like to spend time in. And we did that quite deliberately, so that, you know, if you have a specific background in a clinical area and you know where there's a strong research group, or if you have a strong professional background and you want to develop research in your professional background, it enables you to find out the most appropriate place to locate your internship. And then basically to put an application in, what you're required to do is to identify your supervisor, meet with them and talk about what would a 30-day programme look like for me to gain experience of research. And what we found from last year is that that varied incredibly. Some people had a very specific project. Quite a lot of people did things like systematic reviews. Some people didn't do that at all. They actually spent 30 days maybe being in lab meetings, maybe going out and doing data collection, maybe doing part of data analysis, doing things like specific training programs. So it's completely up to you and your supervisor to put together what you think will give you the program to develop your research expertise and your research interests. So that's the kind of the supervised component of it. And then alongside that, we run an educational program which brings the group together, and that happens at 3 different stages throughout the internship. 2-day residential at the beginning, a 1-day workshop in the middle, and a 2-day residential at the end. So during those residentials, the whole team comes together, learns together. There's quite a structured program. And the other element that we've integrated into our program, and I think it does pick up on some of the things that Anne was talking about, is not only the need to develop research skills and academic skills, but also to think about your own personal development as a researcher. So the thing that we've combined in our educational program is quite a strong coaching influence as well. So those sessions, some of it is about the real practicalities of doing research, but some of it is about challenging our own thinking about where does research figure in terms of my values, where am I holding back, what are my aspirations, what do I need to do to move forward. So the residential combines those 2 things, and in between the residential programs we also have group coaching calls as well to keep everybody in touch with each other as they go through the program. So a couple of important things just to flag up. The applications for the North Internship programs are open now. They've been open a number of weeks. The closing date is the 28th of September. So if anybody knows, if you're interested yourself or members of your team may be interested, you need to get those applications and the information quite soon. And that's available from Leanne Gregory at Research Northwest. So you've got Leanne's email address for those, so you can get that information. The other thing to flag up this year, a great year to apply, because this year Health Education England have allocated some extra funding. So this year we've actually got 25 internships available as opposed to 15. Probably we'll revert back to 15 next year. So it's a great year for people to be putting in an application. And the other thing just to flag up is it is for people who are pre-masters. So the intention is to get people onto the clinical academic pathway. So if you have a master's in research or a master's qualification generally, you won't be eligible to apply for the internship program. It's designed to get you onto masters. If you have already got a master's and you're thinking about where to go next, then actually you should be looking at the doctoral fellowships rather than going round in the sort of same area that you already are. So that's just a little bit of background about them. They're designed for people who are pre-masters, to give you a really good taster of being part of a research community, to get a feel for what it's like to be part of the research community. You've got 30 days and it spans over a 6-month period. It's up to you and your manager to identify how that works. Some people did it in blocks, some people did a day a week. That's up to you to negotiate. And it has the educational component as well. We just had a real ball running it last year. It was great fun and a great group of interns. And Dion's just going to share with you now what it was like to be part of that group and how it actually panned out from that more personal perspective. So hand over to Dion.
So hello everybody, I'm Dion Moat. I'm a specialist physiotherapist working in Walkergate Park, which is in Newcastle. And I was very lucky to be part of the first round of internships. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my experience. As I said, I'm a chartered physiotherapist. I trained in Newcastle and qualified in 2003, and I've specialised in neurorehabilitation. I work between inpatient rehab wards and also into the behavioural unit, so working with people who have had brain injury but have challenging behaviours as a consequence of that. Walkergate Park it's the regional specialist unit, so we're a tertiary level 1 provider, and we treat a range of neurological conditions, so traumatic brain injury, acquired brain injury, MS, few spinals, a variety of other neurological disorders. And I have a very clinical background. So since qualifying in 2003, I've worked clinically the whole time. I haven't really done any other academic study as such. I've done the odd course here and there, which have had assignments or essays, but nothing any more formal than that, really. So when I saw this opportunity, I didn't think about it initially, and it wasn't until speaking to a friend that I really considered it. And I was at the point where I wanted a new challenge. I love working clinically, but I wanted something to get my teeth stuck into. I wanted a new challenge. I finished having my family, so I felt like my career is kind of back on the radar, and this was going to be quite a good opportunity just to kind of explore different avenues and different interests within my career. I had considered MSc in the past, but having family and various other things, it just never was the right time, I guess. And because it's so long since I've done anything academic, I kind of started having those fears of, am I capable? Can I go back to studying, writing academically? So again, this was just another good opportunity to kind of have a taste of that and see if it's something I liked and see if it was something that I wanted to pursue. Also, professional development, I felt it was really important to kind of continue developing professionally. I love clinical practice, I love being a clinician, but it does get more and more frustrating. I feel like I'm asking more and more questions, and I feel like having an opportunity for AHPs to be involved within the research world and promoting and developing the evidence base that we work with it's a new opportunity. It was a great opportunity. The trust I work in is a big mental health trust, so they are very active within research. It's often medically led, and it's often into the mental health side of things. So within our neuro speciality, there's very little AHP involvement, and there's a huge lack of evidence within neuro rehab, and I just saw this as an opportunity to kind of explore it a little bit further, really. So how did I kind of go about applying for it? Well, again, it came in a circular email to everybody. To be honest, I didn't really think much of it initially. And it wasn't until I was having a coffee with a friend who's doing a PhD at the moment who mentioned it, and we talked a little bit more about it. And she identified somebody that would be a possible person to be a mentor for the internship. So I was able to contact her, and she very kindly agreed to be my mentor. The application process, it's quite a lengthy application form, really. So you do have to have a really good idea as to what you can bring to the internship and then what you can take back to your service. And then following that, it was called an informal interview, but it didn't feel that informal at the time. So what did I do? So I spent my 30 days in a biomedical research centre, which was part of Newcastle University. I worked with the human movement science team who specialise in working with Parkinson's, and they're particularly interested in the link between cognition and gait. And my mentor was Professor Lynne Rochester. She's a physio by background and is a professor in human movement sciences. So while I was there, I was given a project to work on, and I was also kind of allocated a day-to-day supervisor who was a PhD student there. She's a physio by background as well, so she kind of looked after me on a day-to-day basis, supported me through the project, whilst I had regular meetings with Lynne, who was my mentor. And what I actually did, because I work 3 days part-time, so 3 clinical days, but what I actually did to use my 30 days was I did 2 days clinical and 2 days research for 5 months. And as Lynne mentioned, people did it in different ways. Some people did blocks of time. Some people did 1 day a week. It varied between the interns. And for my service, it was agreed that 2 days clinically and 2 days research was going to be the best spread and use of time. There were pros and cons to doing it that way. Doing it in blocks of time would mean you have chunks of time to really get into it. Doing 2 days per week was good in that I felt like I had more time, but juggling my clinical caseload and then juggling the research side of it and learning new skills 1 week and then having another week before I go back to it. Sometimes I felt like I took a few steps back to get to grips with it before I got going for the week again. So alongside the 30 days, we had to produce a written assignment, which was based on the project or the study that we'd worked on while we were there. We also had to do a reflective written assignment and also a presentation on the very last day to all the interns about our experience and what we'd learned. And I think the most nerve-wracking thing that I did in the whole thing was I had to present my project and my findings to Professor Rochester and her team. They were all very supportive. I think it was just the actual presenting to somebody who has worked in that area, looking at those things for all of her career. But it was a great experience. And then alongside that, we had 5 educational days. So we had 2 days at the beginning, a day in the middle, and 2 days at the end, where we all got together and did lots of different things, really. The coaching was a large element of that. And I was a little bit sceptical about it at first. It was something that I hadn't expected that we would be doing, but it's been very useful. And I think if you go with it and you just kind of let yourself think in a way that you maybe don't have time to think about in your normal day-to-day practice, it's really very useful. Lots of peer support, so we've bonded really well as an intern group, and I think being able to be there to support each other and help each other out was really useful. Lots of information gathering, so we did lots of group work, and everybody does group work. It's not always a big, people don't often have a good view of group work, but it was actually really, really effective. It was really useful and really quite enjoyable, and the whole thing has been challenging, but has been fun at the same time. So just briefly, the project that I was given to work on was part of a larger study that they've been looking at, focusing on the effect of gait in Parkinson's disease. So we looked at a group of Parkinson's patients compared with age-matched controls, and we assessed their gait under 3 conditions. So we looked at them walking normally, we looked at them walking under a cue, and we looked at them walking under a random cue, and basically compared the effects. So the findings, we had expected findings, but we also had some quite novel findings that I think were surprising for the whole team, and that's opened up a whole kind of new ideas, theories and questions which the team are continuing to work on now, which is really nice. So the journey itself was all of those things. It was very challenging. It was very challenging academically. It's a long time since I've had to do any academic writing or academic study. It was challenging juggling my clinical caseload with the research side of it, challenging juggling family life with the rest of it. But it was all very supportive. So there was masses of support from Lynne and her team, the team that I did my 30 days with, and the rest of the interns. So everybody has kind of really worked together to make the opportunity as rewarding as it can be. Really, really inspiring. I felt like a real privilege to work and meet such a group of kind of motivated and enthusiastic AHPs, and it made me feel really proud to be an AHP, which is why I'm here, to kind of really promote this scheme, because it's really important and it's really a good way of getting AHPs involved in research and building our profile and making things better for our patients at the end of the day. So it's exciting. It was really exciting to be involved in something new and really worthwhile, and hopefully the start of a kind of a new generation and a bit of a culture shift within clinical practice. In my experience, you mention research to clinicians and they kind of glaze over and turn away and say I've got patients to see. And I think even if we can just make small changes and slowly change the culture and perception of research, it's not necessarily about clinicians doing research all the time, it's just about kind of promoting it, using it, and making it second nature and not something that you shouldn't be scared of. Loads of learning points. Confidence. It's hugely improved my confidence in being able to do something like this, talk to people, to talk to other professionals, academics. A huge sense of achievement in that, you know, I've done it, I've completed my project, I've done the presentations, I've submitted the work, and it's made me realise that actually if I do want to pursue more formal academic study, I probably am capable of doing it. And in the meantime, I've learnt loads of new skills, a lot of skills kind of that will benefit me professionally, but even just things like using the computer, I'm much more adept in working my way around Excel and literature searching and things like that. Professionally, I think it's really changed my perception of academics and clinicians or clinical researchers. I always felt like there was a big gap, kind of the academics sitting in their offices researching things that they think are useful, and then there's us on the floor going, where's the research to support what we're doing? And I think being able to do something like this and make links with the academics and work with the academics can help kind of bridge that gap and bring them together. Networking, something again that I didn't really know much about, and I just thought it was a bunch of people kind of having a chat. So we've learned how useful that can be, and I feel already I've made lots of good professional links that have already accessed and, you know, spoken to, that are helping with some things that we're doing in work at the moment. Career direction, I think it's definitely made me realise that I still love being a clinician, but I do want something more. So I want to be somewhere in between, have involvement with research, but still maintain my clinical practice. So where am I now? Even though it wasn't a clinical course, I feel like I'm a better clinician. I think I'm more kind of analytical, more critical. I ask probably more appropriate questions, and I have a better ability to go and look for relevant literature, read a paper more effectively, and hopefully make small changes that aren't going to change the world, but might change people's perceptions and just hopefully improve the service that we can give to our patients. One of the big elements of the scheme was to develop the role of the research champion. So I'm working with a colleague who's looking at the role over more of a trust-wide perspective, and I'm working with her to kind of develop things more locally within my team, within our service. And on the back of that, I've been offered a new role with our research and development team looking at NIHR portfolios. So it's leading to other things to get more experience and be more involved with kind of trust-wide stuff, which is really, really positive. And although the internship's finished, I'm continuing to work with Professor Rochester and her team, and we're actually trying to develop the project into a paper that they're hoping to submit for publication, which my name at the moment is a second author, which would be amazing. So it's really positive that I'm kind of maintaining those links and still working with the team. And there's ongoing development and support from the internship programme, so there's a few more dates where we can all get together and kind of reflect on where we're at and different workshops and things. So it's still ongoing, and I think that's the thing. You can treat it as a standalone scheme, course, but actually it can have massive benefits for kind of the future and your service as a whole. What does my future hold? I would definitely like to do an MSc. I think it's given me the stepping stone, if you like, to make it feel like it wouldn't be such a massive jump from being purely clinical, and that now I feel like I could go in that direction. And this is just one of the tasks that we had to do as a group. We had to think about how we would brand research, how we would kind of market what we think research is. And I think even going back to it and look at it now, I think that still kind of rings true, really. And I'm going for a bit of cheese here. this is a picture of all the interns on one of our residential trips. And this is where we first met Will, who was the Will Med, who did the coaching element of the internship. And this is where he kind of invited us to think about our personal values and talked a lot about gremlins and had to go and find objects on a woodland walk that best represented ourselves and had to think about what animal we would be. And I think we all kind of, at this point, thought he was a bit bonkers and thought, what are we letting ourselves in for? But actually, we went with it, we embraced it, and I think all of us have come away feeling like the coaching element, although it wasn't what we expected, was really, really beneficial on some level. So overall, it was an amazing experience, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody who has a little interest in research, who isn't sure whether it's for them, who wants to kind of get in there and start making a difference within AHP role within research and the service that we provide our patients, and who wants to kind of, I guess, explore their own career direction as well. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's kind of given us the opportunity to do it and supported us throughout the whole process. So thank you.